All right. Good morning, financial professionals. I am Preston French, Regional Vice President for E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to the Brew Call today, which is short for Building Relationships Every Week. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you joining the Brew for the first time, welcome. We'd like to start the Brewcast by celebrating today's national days. The first is National Working Moms Day. So for all you hardworking moms out there, today's your day. Thank you for that. Second, I should say lastly but not least, is National Girl Scout Day. So just remember, when you buy those Girl Scout cookies this month, we don't do it for ourselves, we do it for the kids. Today, we're continuing our March lineup centered around business owners, discussing buy sales and other opportunities when dealing with business owners. Our special guest speakers today are Symetra's Director of Advanced Sales, Doug Bowden, and Symetra's Regional Vice President, Brad Mills, to discuss creating opportunities with business owners, including buy-sell options. We encourage all of you to use the chat box or raise a hand to ask a question. All attendees are entered into a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card, and we will announce the winner at the end. So with that, Brad and Doug, thank you for joining us today. Brad, I'll just start with you.
Thanks, Preston, and out there in Brewland, great to talk to you guys again. We appreciate your time and appreciate the opportunity to earn your business. I know you're busy out there, and we're going to bring some good strategies to you. But as Preston said, I have my esteemed colleague, Doug Bowden, our Advanced Planning Director, to go over some business owner strategies and then how that fits into our multi-life program. And really, in brief, our multi-life program is an underwriting concession if you have 10 plus lives, an employee-employer relationship, and it has a really competitive advantage because it's built upon our league-leading accumulation IUL chassis at about a table one race for the underwriting concession at a group rate. So we have a really good product and a low charge story. So that's what we have up here on the screen real quick. Whenever E4 and some of our business partners are vetting products, there's a few columns that are really important to say, okay, this is a good product and this is a good fit. So our accumulation IUL has a low charge structure I mentioned because when there's 0 years, those charges are still coming out, right? So we think that's important. We also have a high relative target to our competition, good cash value buildup, and good income distribution solves. So that's in brief kind of how we built the multi-life platform upon this product chassis. So you have a competitive advantage and a pricing and compensation advantage going through our multi-life platform, if that solved the business owner strategies that we're speaking of. So appreciate your time, and I'll hand it over to Doug. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brad. And let me also say good morning and thank you, everybody, for allowing us to join this call. And as Brad said, and Preston had mentioned, we're talking about creating opportunities we're really focused just for a few minutes here on this call in that reward and retain space. There is a good demand out there. I have to be compliant and say good demand. I can't say great demand out there for executive benefit planning, especially business owners that have C corps, and with unemployment at its all-time low out there. There's a lot of competition to keep and retain talent out there. And that's kind of the space we're hanging in with the multi-life product that we have here. So we're all familiar with business planning when we talk about deferred compensation arrangements and so forth. And I kind of think of deferred compensation arrangements as 3 tiers of planning, and it goes from complex to not so complex to simplistic within these arenas. And when you think of complex deferred compensation arrangements, you think of supplemental executive retirement plans, SERPs, and deferred compensation arrangements where you have deferrals and you have subject to 409A, all great plans for the right fit that are out there, but they tend to be more complex, and life insurance is a good cost recovery vehicle to informally fund those types of plans. In the middle of the spectrum, we have split dollar arrangements, where we see a lot of activity with split dollar arrangements because they're not as complex. We're not as subject to 409A, depending on how we set up the arrangements within there. And we have multiple ownership options right, in split dollar arrangements. So not as complex, and we still have a fair amount of control for the business owner. And then when we want to get a little more simplistic, we jump into executive bonus arrangements where we don't have as much control that are out there in there. So I'm just going to touch on them real quick to show you some designs that we see. This isn't a full spectrum of designs. It's just quick hits, if you will, that are out there. So when we talk about split dollar arrangements, everybody gets a little confused and it seems complex, but there's really only two regimes out there for split dollar. We have economic benefit regime, which is really a protection style sale. And then we have loan regime where we're looking for death benefit protection plus cash value or supplemental income for the executive or business owner that's out there to do this. And it's really all about that reward and retain, but we're not too concerned about immediate tax savings. We're more concerned about cost recovery and control when we use split dollar arrangements. And of course, these split dollar arrangements, we can have an endorsement split dollar where it's owned by the business, where we have the most control, and that leads us to an economic benefit regime in there. And then we have individually owned or even trust-owned options where we can do loan regime split dollar. And we can also do a non-equity collateral assignment. So great flexibility in designs. And if you have 3, 4, 10, 12, 15 people, executives in a group, you can cherry pick and choose your design ownership and how it's going to work with split dollar. So that's one of the great reasons why we see a lot of activity around the split dollar arena. And just real quick, so here's kind of a quick hit on a loan regime. And I don't want you to get stuck in the details and the weeds of everything that's going on the screen. And all I'm doing is showing you an illustration output, and it's just the executive screen. Okay, so it's not the summary, it's not the employer screen. I'm just going to lightly walk through what we're seeing here, and then I'll tell you what my quick hit is that I want you to focus on. So here we have a 45-year-old, of course, because we are a home office and we like to be compliant friendly. In there, we have an executive in a 37% tax bracket. Now, we're assuming in this hypothetical example that we more than likely have a C corporation in a 21% tax bracket. So you already see some tax leverage going on when we're talking 21% tax leverage moving into a 37% tax bracket for possibly the owner of a C corp or a key employee of a C corp in this hypothetical example here. And we're going to do $100,000 of premium for 10 years, reason being so it looks nice and easy on the screen. So you can see the cumulative employer loan grows to $1 million each year by the end of the 10th year in there. And we're going to continue that loan through the 20th year. And in a perfect world at age 65, we're going to assume the split dollar arrangement terminates. It can terminate earlier, later, whatever the choices are in the design. And we're just going to assume that the loan is forgiven at the end of the 20th year, the beginning of the 21st year at age 65. That's your setup in here. So let's just look at year one real quick. We've got a premium of $100,000. So our initial loan amount to the individual is $100,000. And we're going to use a blended short-term AFR rate of 5%. Today, it's like 5.02. A few years ago, it was 13 basis points. So it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. But we just want to use a higher end interest rate in our hypothetical, so you see how it's going to work here. So $100,000 premium, the annual loan interest due at 5% would be $5,000. So we have a recognition of income of $5,000. Now think about that. We just put $100,000 into a life insurance policy for an individual that's individually owned here in our hypothetical example, and the cost to that individual in the first year is $5,000 of income. So therefore, we have tax due of $1,850, and we're showing that third to the last column after tax outlay of $1,850. It's kind of a worst case scenario because that could be bonused out. It could be single bonused out. We could reduce that amount, or it could be grossed up to cover the whole thing, and we could have a zero after tax outlay. So I want to show you kind of a worst case scenario with a higher interest rate and out-of-pocket cost, so you get the idea of our tax leverage that's going on here. So over time, you can see that the loan by the 10th year has grown to $1 million, and at 5%, the annual loan interest is $50,000, and the income tax due is $18,500. Okay, so that's due by the executive, so we're out of pocket. So let's go to the 21st year. Loan is forgiven. Now, remember, when we forgive the loan, we are not making an upfront commitment to do this, because if we make a commitment, now we have a deferred compensation arrangement or a promise for a future payout, and therefore we get subject to 409A and so forth. So this is a hypothetical of, let's just say that the employer decides to forgive the loan in the 21st year without making a promise. So we have a bonus of $1 million. And we have income tax due of $370,000. And you're going, well, Doug, what a great model that is. You just got taxation of $370,000 for the executive or the business owner in there. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take a withdrawal out of the policy, not a loan or anything. We're just doing a pure withdrawal out of the policy for the hypothetical here of $370,000. You can see the after-tax outlay is still zero in there, right? In there. So where's our tax leverage? We're using the deferred values that built up cash in our hypothetical life illustration here. And you can see the cash value at the end of the net surrender value at the end of the 20th year, hypothetically, is 1.4 million. Again, we're using a minimum non-MEC increasing death benefit, maximum funded, 100,000, 10 years in here. And so forth. So we have it collateralized over to the business. So theoretically, we have 2.4 million of cash if you saw the full page in the policy. So we're going to take a distribution of 370, and we still have 2.2 million of hypothetical cash value. So where's the tax leverage? We're using 21% after-tax dollars from a C corporation to fund a life insurance policy of an individual or owner of a C corporation in a 37% tax bracket. And our total out-of-pocket cost could be higher, could be lower, but we're going to assume it's about $286,000 because they just paid it out of pocket, the tax due each year. And we have 2.2 million of cash surrender value. Does everybody see the tax leverage? I hope you do. The internal rate of return on 286 over 20 years to get to 2.2 million is a great internal rate of return on that policy. So imagine if it was zero in the after-tax outlay column. That would be tremendous to do. Again, hypothetical, just based on those returns. So loan regime, split dollar, individually owned, powerful planning tool, whether it's key employee or not. And then if we want to go, if we're more concerned about immediate tax savings and not as much control, we switch to an executive bonus arrangement or a 162 plan, as we may call it as a street name here. And again, we're more concerned about immediate tax savings as opposed to control in here and cost recovery. So if we just take this 45-year-old and we're doing a $20,000 annual premium, and what we're doing, the designs that we see, even though there are single bonus arrangements, grossed up or double bonus arrangements in there, we tend to see a lot of restrictive bonus arrangements. So in here, this model is 20,000 premium. We're grossing it up based on a 32% tax bracket to the actual bonus to be 29,412. In the first year, you can see that number. And therefore, from the 29,412, we can fund the annual premium of 20,000, have the 9,400 left over for the 32% tax, and we have zero after-tax outlay in the column. And the whole point is we have zero after-tax outlay based on this gross net bonus arrangement, and the employer is getting a tax savings each year of the 29,000, right? Immediate tax savings, depending on what their tax rate is, 21%, whatever it is in our example. And notice at the end of the 20th year, we're not really maximum funding a policy, because there's, in this particular example, when I do get an opportunity to tell the full story, there is a need for an initial death benefit of $500,000 on the individual side. So we grossed up the death benefit a little bit. So we're just a little more than moderate funding the policy, but still zero outlay. And we potentially have a little over 700,000 of cash surrender value at the end of the 20th year. Still great internal rate of return for the individual that owns the policy as a reward and retain tool. And we can add a vesting schedule as a restrictive executive bonus arrangement, REBA, out there. So in our hypothetical here in that third to the last column, we're just doing a 10% vesting schedule. You want something that's attractive. It could be 20% over 5 years, 10% over 10 years, but you certainly don't want to go all the way 20 years or to, a retirement age, because then it's a yawn, right? It's like, oh, boring. We'll never get there. I'll never make that in there. So you want an attractive tool. Yes.
Hey, Doug, real quick, if we've had any advisors on that have never done an executive bonus plan for a business owner, in this scenario, you're looking at the annual premium, the bonus from the employer. The bonus is more because they're using the double I guess the double bonus to cover the
grossed up
tax.
bonus. Yes.
Correct. To
Yep.
cover the tax for the
Yep.
employee.
Yeah, and we're assuming 32% tax bracket, so we're grossing up the 20,000 to get to the 29. So it's zero net after tax outlay. Yep. In there. So, we can have a vesting schedule here, again, the 10% example each year. So if we're at the end of year 5, there's a 50% vesting schedule, and the hypothetical surrender value 72,000. Their vesting schedule is 50% of that if they decided to leave the company, right? And it's fairly easy to set up because we have a modification of ownership form, which is kind of like a collateral assignment form. And it's filled out, it's submitted to, Symetra, and then Symetra has it in the file. So basically, the only thing the individual can do is change the beneficiary designations in there, and then they need employer permission to do just about everything else. So there's some avenue of control there to do that, and an attractive vesting schedule. But again, simple to set up. It's not complicated at all. So loan regime split dollar arrangements, grossed up REBA designs are kind of the two hot ones that we see. Not that other designs aren't great. Endorsement split dollar is still great. All those funding techniques to do that. And even on an individual basis, we're showing you fully underwritten. But what we can do, as Brad said, is we can do this on a multi-life platform. So we can do guaranteed issue. We can make the process even simpler. If we have 10 lives or more, and you can see on the screen, again, I want to stress guaranteed issue. So there's only 3 questions on the application, which I'll go through real quick here. Minimum of 10 lives, ages 20 to 70. And what's more important is that base salary plus bonus amount, 75,000. So 75,000 is the compensation requirement that we're looking for to participate in this. And, a great example is that previous example with the bonus arrangement in there. So if somebody's at 70,000 and they're getting a bonus of 5,000, we would count that as 75,000, right? As an executive bonus arrangement. We'll be able to add that in to there. So just keep in mind, we're always looking for an employer-employee situation. So we're not looking for independent groups or, donors of organizations and so forth, because we want to make sure everybody's actively at work. In there. And this is how we work with our reinsurers. So you can see actively at work is 30 hours a week and so forth to do that. But other important features of it is, even though we've broken the accumulator IUL product out into 2 classes. So we have a multi-life smoker group and a multi-life non-smoker rate class. With the accumulation product, we can do 1035 exchanges. We can have foreign nationals, up to 10% of the group in there, and we can review a case for premium financing. We just focus on the financials of the business, not the individuals, because the business is the borrower, just as we would a traditional premium financing arrangement. So lots of flexibility in there with multi-life to do it. Our multiples, pretty straightforward. 10 to 19 lives, we can do up to 50,000 times the number of lives in there, and we can even get up to 75,000 times the number of lives for 50 or more within it. But again, we'll help you with all that little math stuff there. But just kind of know that, minimum of 10 lives, maximum face amount we can do is 5 million. Yep, I just said that, 5 million guaranteed issue, as long as the multiples are there. And or 20 times salary. I've never seen an issue with 20 times salary, but there's always the first, right? But just know that maximum face can be up to 5 million based on our multiples, which is pretty good. And then again, on the application, there's only 3 questions. Have you ever been hospitalized or absent due from work or illness or accident for more than a total of 3 days in the last 3 months? I challenge anybody to say that 3 times really quick to do that. In there, and are you actively engaged at work full time? Generally, we're looking for 30 or more hours a week. And are you a tobacco user? Yes or no? That's it on the application. And if you answered yes to number 1, that doesn't mean they're kicked out of the pool, because it could have been a hospital visit for the flu or something that, broken arm, whatever it was. In there, quick review with the underwriter, right back in the pool. Unless it's something really serious, right, to do that. So those 3 quick questions on the app, and the process to review is really easy. Hopefully you come and you talk to Brad Mills, you engage myself in the process. And during the review, it's just a simple. We have a submission form which gathers some information. It's a short fact finder that helps us with our reinsurer to review the case and internally to review the case. And then we just look for a census, and we have a prefabricated census with the information we need. Once we do our review, we create an offer letter. Once you have the offer letter in your hand, you are free to submit business. It's that easy. And we've done cases in as short as a week to put them in place to do that. So when you think of our multi-life business planning platform, I know I went into loan regime, split dollar a little bit, and I went into executive bonus arrangements a little bit. But, the sky is the limit, right? It could be key person coverage. It could be buy-sell coverage where you have multiple owners. And if you have 10 or more owners, and maybe you're setting up a trust deed cross-purchase arrangement, guaranteed issue may be a great way to go to make the process simple to do that. Executive bonus arrangements, I talked about deferred compensation arrangements and split dollar arrangements. Again, sky's the limit. Where are we seeing this success real quick? I'll just kind of hit on some where we're seeing successes. I would say with law firms is a good starting point where partners are required to have the buyout coverage, and you have senior partners, junior partners in there. And so definitely we'll call it key person style coverage there, whether it's a national law firm or a regional law firm. Those are out there. Think of hospitals, regional hospitals that are either for-profit, nonprofit. Either way, the designs work. We've seen those hospitals are having trouble competing to keep their physicians on staff to go to bigger hospitals. Therefore, they're interested in these types of arrangements where loan regime split dollar works pretty well in those arrangements to do that. And of course, in the regular retail space, we've seen a fair amount of bonus arrangement activity to do that. So just some quick hits. I know we're short on time, but I didn't want to take up too much time. But I'm open for questions if anybody's got any.
We'll wait for some final questions. I'd like to remind you that today's brew and our entire library are recorded and shared on the brew page on our website, www.e4.insurance. If you want to rewatch or watch any of the ones prior to this, you're able to do so. We'll wait again just a few seconds for any questions. If anyone has any questions, while we wait for questions, Doug, you'd mentioned the Executive 162 bonus plan. You also mentioned C Corp. Remind us again, for the ones that haven't done this in a while, if it is a C Corp, typically an Executive 162 bonus plan, the owner wouldn't necessarily be able to do that on themselves, but if they're a C Corp, can they do that on themselves as the business owner?
Yes. Yeah, because your C corporation is double taxation. So the owner is taxed on any income or distributions to themselves anyway within there. So a C corp owner, majority shareholder, could easily participate in either a bonus arrangement or a split dollar arrangement to do that in there. If they are a flow through, a sub S style of business entity, then majority shareholder, it's split dollar. You can set up a bonus arrangement, but it's still a distribution and it's still after tax dollars, so it really doesn't matter. It's just kind of on paper for the owner to almost like set up a LERP style, right? Individually owned policy, but you're just using after tax dollars as distributions from the sub S to fund the life insurance policy. And they might have the flexibility to determine whether it's a dividend or return of basis, things like that. They will work with their, advisors on to do that. But a split dollar arrangement, they would be double taxed on it, basically, right? After tax dollars to fund a premium, and then they're being taxed on either the economic benefit of the loan interest. So it may not work that well to do that. But for key employees, definitely either entity works great.
Yep, perfect. And then also on the face amounts, 10 to 19 employees was 50,000 per life. If you've got a couple individuals that want to build it more towards accumulation, they can reduce based on the max, correct?
Yeah. It would just be the maximum amount, and we can even tier amounts, Preston. Meaning, you could have senior executive, we'll just hypothetically call it that, at let's say $500,000. I'm just hypothetically saying it, and then you could have junior upcoming executives maybe at 250. We can tier by job brackets and so forth, as long as it makes sense and it's not too weighted.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. All right. Again, today's recording will be posted to our brew page, added to our library, and emailed to advisors later. Now for our giveaway. Doug, if you would, pick a number between 1 and 30.
26.
26, you said?
Yes.
All right, 26. All right, the winner for today's drawing is Sheila Guerin. Congrats, Sheila, on that.
Yeah.
Be on the lookout for a complimentary CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card will be coming your way from all of us here at E4 Insurance. Again, appreciate you for your business. Next week, we'll continue with March's brew lineup with Dan Peterson, President and Managing Partner with E4 Insurance Services, who will be discussing the 3 things every good buy-sell agreement should have and walk through E4's buy-sell risk calculator. You won't want to miss that. So, Doug, do you have anything else?
Nope. We look forward to working with you, and hopefully it wasn't a ton of information, but you got some good hits of things to look out for.
Absolutely. And again, we appreciate you and Brad for joining us today. So with that, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week on The Brew.